Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Physician's Mind podcast. I'm your host, Curtis Wilkerson. I'm an incoming medical student, and today I'm honored to be speaking with Dr. Robert Hasty. Dr. Hasty is a highly accomplished osteopathic physician and educator. He was a triple science major at the University of Miami. He earned his Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine from Nova Southeastern University, where he later served as vice chair of the Internal Medicine Department. Dr. Hasty has been a pioneer in medical education, founding residency programs and medical schools, including the Idaho College of Osteopathic Medicine, and he now serves as the Dean and Chief Academic Officer of the Orlando College of Osteopathic Medicine. A past president of the American College of Osteopathic Internists and a board-certified internist, Dr. Hasty's career is marked by numerous awards for excellence in education, leadership, and service to the osteopathic community. So, Dr. Hasty, I'm looking forward to our conversation. Thanks for joining me. How are you doing this morning?
Good. Yeah. Well, likewise. And thank you for the kind words, Curtis. I really appreciate it and excited to be here today.
Of course. Happy to have you. So let's just dive right into it here, and we'll start from the beginning. So, Dr. Hasty, why did you want to go to medical school?
So, I wanted to go to medical school because I wanted to serve people. I wanted to make a difference in the world by improving the lives of others. And that sort of guided me, everything from becoming a physician to practicing as a hospitalist to starting residency programs and medical schools and everything like that. And to the day I still do, the difference and I've been fortunate in my career to be able to make a difference in the lives of others and hopefully have an impact that will last a long time.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And why did you choose to go internal medicine?
So I love internal medicine. Well, first of all, I love hospital medicine, and internal medicine is sort of one of the best backgrounds to become a hospitalist. And, but of course, the great thing about internal medicine is it gives you so many options, right? So, you can go into hospital medicine. If you want to go into primary care, you can certainly do that. Of course, academic medicine, which is where I spend my life now. And of course, all the subspecialties. So I think there's like 14 subspecialties for internal medicine. And so, as far as keeping your options open and being able to do so much, and, of course, it's a cognitive specialty, and that really attracted me to be able to diagnose and treat patients, based upon what you learn with your hands, your mind, talking with patients, looking at labs, and diagnostic tests and things like that. And to me, it's been an incredibly rewarding career, and I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Awesome. Yeah, it definitely gives you a lot of options for how you want to practice and what you want to do with your career. So that's a great thing as well. During residency, you were known to have received a lot of awards. For example, the Resident of the Year award for 3 straight years, as well as receiving the Howard Kane Resident of the Year. And you were the first osteopathic physician ever to win that award in 40 years of academic medical training at Mount Sinai. I wanted to ask you, during residency, Dr. Hasty, what were some of the characteristics and some of the habits and practices that helped you succeed as a resident and earn the awards that you did and for your performance?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris. So, I really think, at the end of the day, working hard, perseverance, putting others, before yourself, I think at the end of the day, those are the characteristics that folks, they want as sometimes, they want to see that as their leader. Sometimes they want to see that as the sort of the resident of the year type of thing. And of course, I was never been motivated by awards or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it does feel really good to have these things, and it does serve as an important milestone that, you are making a difference in your life. But again, I think, focusing on that bigger purpose, right? Serving others. I love this author by the name of Daniel Pink. He has this great book, and it's one of my favorite books. It's called Drive. And, it talks about motivation, right? So there's motivation 1.0, which was, kind of running away from the lion, right? That you don't want to be, dinner for the lion. So that's, an important sort of like flight or fight, type of motivation. Motivation 2.0 is sort of carrot stick motivation. Are you doing things for incentives and, rewards and stuff like that? And my brother's a car salesperson. The car sales business, wouldn't exist if it hadn't been, if it wasn't for the commissions for selling cars, right? If you're just on salary, you're like, oh yeah, the car's over there, let me know if you want to buy it, type of thing, as opposed to, the incentives for that. But really the, Drive 3.0 is what he calls it, or motivation, 3.0, is really when you're doing things for bigger purposes, things like, missions, doing things for a vision, you're doing things for a personal mission. And, as I mentioned, my drive has always been to, help improve the world by changing the lives of others. That's, my personal mission. That's, the whole, my entire career. That's what I've been doing. That's why I became a physician. That's why I do what I do. And, by doing that, it gives you almost unlimited energy. So you can, study hard, become a great physician, work hard, excellence in patient care. And of course, the same goes true with leadership, right? Serving others, right? And I very much embrace the idea of servant leadership, right? So if you can serve the needs of others, you're going to, have such an impact. Zig Ziglar's got a great quote, if you've ever heard it. You can have everything in life if you can just help enough other people get what they want, So anyway, that's what's always driven me. And I'll tell you, it's been, a blessing, and it's hard work, right? I've got a family member that says I always walk between raindrops, and I wish that was true. We all get wet in the rain, but I do think that, by working hard, planning ahead, having integrity, and not only with others, but with yourself, you're going to have those outcomes that you want. You're going to help others get those outcomes that they want. And that's how you can change the world, right? By the hard work and discipline and, the integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking your initiative to enact a positive change on the world. I think it sheds light also what you said on the importance of having that deep-seated purpose for yourself. It's interesting. That seems like a cool book, Daniel Pink, Drive. I'll link it in the show notes here, but it sounds like he kind of describes drive in like a hierarchical manner, starting from the primitive survival to external rewards to finally the intrinsic drive, like what your inner purpose, your inner calling, if you will, is. So those levels are interesting. And I think as well, how you mentioned using that drive. That's what's beautiful about medicine, is because if you have that drive to be a servant leader, you have that drive to be selfless, you can enjoy the journey, the rigors of medical school and residency and learning all of the content that you have to learn, knowing that you're also going to be using that in your career to positively impact people. So very good answer, very interesting perspective there. So shifting towards sort of the direction that led you to where you are now, what inspired your decision to pursue a career in academic medicine? And when you started making that transition, did you think you would end up where you are today?
Yeah. So what really happened? So I was a hospitalist. That was my first job out of residency, because I love taking care of hospitalized patients, and to me it's one of the most rewarding fields of medicine. You see the patients when they're the sickest, and within a few days you make this improvement in the patient's lives, and you really get connected with the patients. You make a difference, and plus the whole community, the hospital, the nurses, the respiratory therapists, the ancillary staff, all these type of things. It creates this incredible community, and I love it. To me, it's one of the coolest things in the world is doing it. But one day, and I was teaching medical students, right? I would have medical students, rotating with me when I was a hospitalist. And I think I'd kind of fallen in love when I was a resident. I was chief resident, so I was, sort of involved with teaching and everything, residency. And then when I got out as a hospitalist, I really enjoyed those interactions and stuff. And I really, people say that they have a calling to do certain things. I've got a family member that's, a clergy member. He said that he had a calling to go into clergy, and those type of things. I feel like I had the same thing. I was, really, I came home from work one day and I loved what I was doing. I mean, I would have been very happy, being a hospitalist, practicing the rest of my life as a hospitalist and everything like that. But I really wanted to teach the next generation of physicians. And I said, I can have a positive impact on the lives of the patients, but if I can teach medical students and residents all day long, I'm going to have a much greater impact the whole way. And so I literally took $100,000 pay cut, so which, financially was probably not the best, decision at the time. But that being said, I took $100,000 pay cut. I went to academic medicine, went back to my alma mater, which was Nova Southeastern University, now called the Dr. Kiran C. Patel College of Osteopathic Medicine. And became a faculty member. So I was like one of those young, and back then it was pretty young. It was pretty uncommon for a young physician to become an full-time academic physician. Now it's a little bit more common. And even back then, some of this was 20 years ago, some of the faculty development and things like that, weren't quite as robust as they are today. I'll never forget, like my first week, somebody mentioned Bloom's taxonomy. I'm sitting there, what's Bloom's taxonomy? It's not something they teach in medical school and everything. It's, one of the ideas behind learning, theory and stuff like that. And so, some of that stuff was self-taught. Of course, we only get to where we are because, are on the shoulders of giants, right? And so, I had some great mentors along the way, and of course, learned from a lot of other, great mentors and friends over the years, and became the academic physician. But it was great. I mean, I think that early on in the career, I was like so positively rewarded. And by the way, I never thought I'd get an academic, administration. I never had the idea of being a dean of a medical school or anything. That was never my dream, right? My dream was to teach medical students and just have that joy of teaching and making a difference. And of course, that multiplier effect, right? If you make a difference taking care of your patients, treating medical students and residents, they're going to have an impact, much more multiplication than you could ever have. Right? And then they're going to go on and take care of patients in a great way and stuff like that. So that was my motivation. And then, so I got in, and early on, I got some, great experience teaching medical students. And to me, there's nothing more joyful than teaching medical students in a medical school environment, assuming that, it's a good environment to teach in and stuff like that. And so next thing you know, I became a program director of an internal medicine residency. I founded an internal medicine residency program in South Florida, Palmetto General Hospital. Then we started some fellowships. I helped other people to do it. Then I became vice chair of internal medicine at Nova Southeastern. And then, of course, every committee, had experience in a lot of these things. And then a friend of mine was starting North Carolina's first osteopathic medical school. He was reaching out to me and said, hey, I really need somebody to be an associate dean up here. Can you come up and, help, develop residency programs? I said, sure. So I went up there. I was part of the founding team at Campbell University, which was at the time a 127-year-old faith-based university, little place called Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, which is about an hour south of Raleigh. But we really did incredible work, with the team, and my mentor, who was the dean at the time. I mean, we crushed it, right? We started 19 residency programs, some different institutions, 19 programs. I think 353 residency positions that we got approved or something like that, all over a course of 3 years, and also helped the development of this new medical school growing up, which I really kind of loved and everything. And then, like say, I'm driving down one day, beautiful fall day in North Carolina in my convertible, and top down everything, and I got this call up, and they said, do you want to you want to start a medical school in the Mountain West? And I was like, I don't know. Next thing I know, and I had like 10 people tell me I was crazy for even considering it, right? So of course I did it, and which turned out, in that that project ended up being Idaho's first medical school. So in a state at the time that ranked 49th in terms of physicians per capita, we created ICOM, the Idaho College of Osteopathic Medicine. And many people regard that as an incredibly positive medical school in terms of what we did there. Of course, with the team and everything, we built that up. That's going to serve a rural and underserved population there in Idaho, and give opportunities for people to become physicians in Idaho, because they didn't have a medical school before. They were buying seats from University of Washington, but they never had their own medical school. And of course, that's a fast growing state right now. In fact, the Treasure Valley there is really, growing. It's like this place where, people from California want to move. And so there's a huge need. And they were 49th in terms of physicians per capita. Actually, before we even graduated the first class, it became 50th in terms of physicians per capita. So, the huge need there. And that's grown, and that school's done terrific. And I'm, proud that was, I guess, it's like sort of like being like my first child in terms of, medical schools that, I really did, and, was able to, have an impact, working with the team, of course. So I was employee number one there. And then I started consulting for a number of medical schools that wanted to start up. And eventually, I guess I just celebrated my 4th anniversary not too long ago here at Central Florida's first osteopathic medical school. And so Dr. Kiran C. Patel, who actually was a benefactor of the college that I'd actually graduated from, and actually now bears his name, had a vision of having another medical school in Florida. He had both the DO schools at Nova Southeastern as well as the MD school at Nova Southeastern was named after him. But he wanted to start another medical school in Florida. And he really wanted to start a global health university. And so I got, a little over 4 years ago, and it was probably this crazy idea, right? Starting in Orlando. So, really we're right next to Disney World. In fact, we can see the castle. We're the only medical school that has fireworks every night and everything. But we bought this old, it was old Orange Grove right here, a place called Horizon West right next to Disney World. And the dream was that we would build this up, and it would create this beautiful medical school and eventually a health professional university. And so and I was working on my car at the time, and it probably seemed like this crazy idea when I went to some of these hospital administrators. I said, we're going to I have this billionaire who's funding, creating this incredible medical school. So, sort of the founding team that, worked closely in his office, Chad Tujag, Phil Zavari, myself, we were sort of sort of the main development team on this thing. And then, and I'm really proud of what we did. So it's, this is the best medical school I've ever worked with, in terms of the faculty, the staff. I mean, people are the best part, right? And they're really, very caring. They love the students, and, they do a great job teaching. We developed this curriculum, which is sort of the curriculum of the future, right? So everything in our curriculum is evidence-based in terms of medical education, adult learning, and stuff like that. And so there's really nothing that we're doing new in our curriculum. The only thing is we're the only medical school, as far as I know, that does all these elements together. And so I'd say that we have the most modern medical school and most evidence-based curriculum in the entire United States. And we're going to train better physicians here. So I'm super excited. Today we have 74 employees. Right now we have 97 or 96 students, that were part of the inaugural class that started this, just several months ago. And then, next year we're taking 145 students, and then we'll be up to 195 students a year, each year, thereafter. So eventually we'll have a total enrollment about 750 medical students, 74 employees we have right now, but eventually we'll have about 110 employees. Right now we have 1,135 credentialed preceptors and clinical faculty members. We have 33 hospital affiliations, including affiliation with Advent Health, which is Florida's largest hospital system, Orlando Health, and lots of other incredible hospital systems, mostly along the I-4 corridor here. And really, and of course, my clinical education department calls it a concierge approach to really how clinical education is running. So all of our core rotations are in the state of Florida. So it really is, very impressed with what we're doing here. I was just at we had a, association meeting last night, and a whole bunch of we had like 12 medical students there. And, they were just telling me all the incredible experiences they're having. So it's been an incredible blessing. We have a separate 501c3 graduate medical education institute. It's called the Dr. Kiran C. Patel Institute for Graduate Medical Education. And that started a whole bunch of residency programs already there. So we have, we're really going to make an impact on the growth of Florida in terms of providing, physicians and opportunities for folks to become physicians. Here, and Orlando is just growing. I mean, Florida is the fastest growing state in the nation right now. First time in 70 years it has been, but and of course the growth projections are off the chart. When we started this in 2020, the population of the Orlando metropolitan statistical area was 2.7 million. By 2030, we're going to have 5.2 million. So almost doubling in 10 years. So it's incredible. And we actually strategically put this in Horizon West, which is the fastest growing part of Orange County, Florida. We have 10 new rooftops a day. I'm sitting in my office. This was all orange groves around. Everywhere I look is brand new construction that wasn't here 2 years ago. It really is just a incredible growth, incredible need. And literally this is the medical school I'd want to go to in terms of the curriculum, the culture, the faculty, the staff. My daughter's 14 years old. She wants to go to medical school. She wants to go OCOM. And, for me to be able to build a medical school that I'd want to go to, I want my own daughter, who I love more than anything in the world, to go to, that, I think really, helps drive me. And this medical school is going to be here for generations to come. And it's part of the university that we're developing too. So I'm just so blessed to be part of it, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, the role that you've played in the expansion of medical education nationwide is just incredible. And I'm curious as to now, as the dean and the chief academic officer, what your role is in the admissions process and actually, kind of working with the students day to day. And I wanted to kind of pick your brain about what you think, and you can pull some of your experiences as a residency director as well here. What do you think are some of the traits that lend to success in medical students, medical applicants, residents, right? But primarily medical students. Like, what do you see among those who thrive in medical school?
Yeah. So first of all, I think you do have to have some academic stamina, right? You have to have the academic wherewithal. And I'm not saying that you have to have stellar grades or stellar MCAT scores or whatever, but you do have to be able to process information. You do have to be able to do reasonably well academically. And some of this is the responsibility of us to try to determine if folks have that wherewithal academically when they come in. And again, we're more than just looking at the numbers of somebody, right? We want to look at the whole individual when they come in. you know, and we do have a responsibility, right? Because if we accept them and they don't have the academic wherewithal and then they fail out, we've only just accepted somebody's tuition dollars without, we're not doing anybody any service. Not only that, we took away a spot from somebody that, maybe could have turned into a great physician. It's an incredible opportunity for us, and it's an incredible responsibility, for our entire admissions team and the admissions committee. But I would say, and I tell everyone here, I have something called the mom test. Never accept anybody in a medical school that you wouldn't want to take care of your own mom. And that works if, I guess if they like their mom. So, but, I also say, also you want somebody that takes care of you. So, usually in that category, somebody, the faculty staff that interview the students, to do it. And I think, so that's the whole thing, right? So you have to have the academic wherewithal. You have to have that caring, compassion. I think you have to have that motivation, that drive, right? Because let's face it, people that can get in medical school, they're so freaking smart. They could probably make a lot more money in business or something like that. But it does take a different person that wants to be a physician to go through all this training, to spend time, and let's face it, all the countless hours of studying and hard work that goes into becoming, a great physician. It's not for everybody, right? And most people are not going to make those sacrifices in their lives to, become physicians. And so it's a special person that we kind of need to, do those things. And then, but of course, and we have to make sure that folks, have that psychosocial mindset and the social skills, right? They call it soft skills, but one of my department chairs says it's core human skills. And I couldn't agree with them more. I think soft skills is a problem because soft skills are sometimes the hardest skills to have, right? Some people have innate soft skills that are good, and the rest of us, like myself, we kind of have to develop those over time, right? And they're a lot harder to develop over time than, some people just seem to kind of, intuitively have some of those. But anyway, yeah. So I think those are the things, that folks have. And again, it also goes back to the motivation, right? Do they have that motivation to do it? I mean, I had, I've had students and advisees before, the ones that are not successful almost all the time, they don't have that deep motivation to become a physician. Occasionally they don't have the academic wherewithal, but most people are smart enough if they're smart enough to get to the admissions table for an interview. I mean, they typically have all the wherewithal, but it's sometimes it's those other things, right? The motivation and those other skills. And the other thing is, you don't necessarily want to graduate somebody from medical school that can only on the basis of graduate medical school. You want somebody that can graduate and become an excellent physician. Our mission here is to train caring and competent physicians, right? We have caring in the mission statement. There's an old saying in medicine, patients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so, at the end of the day, I mean, if you can't relate, connect to people, and you can't help people, you could be the smartest physician in the world, but that's not going to really move the needle on improving people's lives through caring for them as a physician.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, once you establish the academic wherewithal, it then sort of depends on, okay, well, how socially perceptive are you? How proficient are you in navigating social interactions effectively? And how well can you demonstrate that you have that inner purpose that's going to carry you through the challenges of medical school? And it's interesting, you mentioned the sacrifice that it takes to succeed in medical school. And I'll never forget, I was a sophomore in college taking organic chemistry, and I had a great professor, Dr. Houchins, great professor. And I was talking to him about how there was just so much going on. And I was like, I'm making all these sacrifices in order to get the grade or whatever it was. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, if it's, I think verbatim what he said was, it's not a sacrifice if it's what you want to do.
Right.
So if you want to be a physician, you want to serve your community, you want to learn the nature of health, the human body, the nature of human life, you want to use that knowledge positively, then studying, then sitting in the clinic, then working is not going to be a sacrifice. It's going to be something that is meaningful towards your vision. So all beautiful things to consider and all very good advice for those who are interested in medical school. And I think a lot of that is also going to apply to being in medical school. You have to just be able to withstand the difficulties. You have to be able to absorb so much information and then continue to maintain your health, maintain your social relationships, and just be a generally healthy person. Because again, and you can shed some of your opinion on this as well, Dr. Hasty, I think physicians need to set the example for what health looks like. And in fact, in the latest episode of your podcast, which will be included in the show notes, by the way, the OCOM podcast, you mentioned how striving for excellence as a core value is not something that you necessarily think is ideal, so to speak. You think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in your opinion, from what I gathered, excellence is not necessarily a state of being, but it's something that you're constantly progressing towards. And my point in bringing that up is, as a physician, you sort of have to set that standard of excellence. And by doing so, you're constantly seeking to improve. You're constantly challenging yourself. You're constantly moving towards something more productive, something more positive. And all that to say, my question to you now is, like I said, physicians are called to be leaders in the healthcare space, and they need to set the example in the clinic and beyond. So in your opinion, what do you think makes a good physician leader?
Yeah, so great, Curtis. And by the way, that I say it all the time. I strongly believe that excellence is not a state of being, right? If what you were doing was excellent 5 or 10 years ago, it may not be excellent now, but excellence is really a state of becoming. Our first core value here is continuous improvement and innovation. We're close to Disney, so sort of the Disney culture kind of comes in and inculcates almost everything we do, it seems like. But, Walt Disney himself had a great saying that it'll always be in a state of improvement and a state of becoming, right? And he was talking about Disneyland because, he always wanted to continue to improve and get better. He felt the same thing about Disney as a company. And of course, he's no longer there, but I think that organization also feels the same way. And I think all of us in our individual lives should do that, right? Sort of what they call lifelong learning for the physician, right? Always, focusing on becoming better, right? Knowledge and skills and technologies that improve lives. I mean, I was just talking last night to a group of physicians, about, all the GLP, drugs and stuff like that. I mean, it's changing lives. I mean, a lot of physicians who were in the room, it changed their lives, right? They were, struggling with obesity and things like that. And, now that, they have healthy BMIs and all these other things like that to do it. And so I think, that's important. And I agree. I think the physician of the future, has to be one that is healthy, right? You have to focus on wellness as a physician, and in some ways, I mean, I think historically we haven't always done that as physicians, right? Sometimes, we've gotten so focused on, other things that we haven't focused on, our physical health, our mental health as physicians. But the physician of the future, I think the expectation is there. And, and just like I talk, with our medical students here, right? I mean, being a physician, it's sort of like high performance, and becoming a physician is sort of like that high performance state, almost like you're an athlete or something like that, where, a professional athlete or whatever, you really have to focus on all these things. So, little things like, making sure you have good sleep hygiene, sleeping 8 hours a night, that you're eating, healthy, that you're not obese, that you're exercising, that you are doing some positive journaling and random acts of kindness and all those other things to, help to make you happy and, have those type of mental health wellnesses too. Those are important. And I'll tell you myself, I mean, I think, I used to be 50 pounds heavier. I didn't exercise as much as I do now. I didn't eat as healthily as I do now. And, it's so easy for folks to kind of get off that path. But, here I'm medical school dean of a medical school that has wellness as one of our core values, right? And, how could I be like this obese guy that doesn't exercise as much as I should and stuff like that? And so, so I personally changed my life. And I think that, if we can start medical students off right, get them to, focus on the health and the wellness and, not only the physical, but the mental health as well, throughout the time, these are going to be the physicians that, are out there, and then they are going to do, so much better in the future, right? I mean, the expectation of the physician of the future is that they're better than the physician of the past, right? And that they can, do these things, and it's all important. Now, and he talked about leadership, right? So, the interesting thing about leadership is that people expect physicians to be leaders, right? You graduate medical school, on day one of, as a physician, people expect, hey, you're the doctor, right? You're the captain of the ship, the leader of the healthcare team, those type of things. But it's interesting. So I graduated in 2000. I had zero formal leadership training in medical school. I went on to residency. I became the chief resident, at Mount Sinai for my residency program. I had zero leadership training too, but I was expected to be a leader, right? And, and I think we all had, different, vagueness, awareness of what, heck, I didn't even know what core leadership skills were, right? Things like adaptability and flexibility and leadership presence and all those things. Now I somehow intuitively learned some of those things, over time. And then I didn't even know about leadership styles, and, early leaders sometimes will start off autocratic, and that doesn't really work out too well. And so it took me a while to really understand what servant leadership was. I mean, eventually I did formal leadership courses and, advanced my own, personal leadership. And in fact, now I teach leadership, somewhat. And, but that being said, I think, again, why medical education is so much better now is that we are starting to do these things. We actually have a leadership course now for the medical students. Actually, I just walked in the room the night before last. They were doing our leadership course. We actually make it voluntary. Basically, the entire class is participating in leadership. It's that good, and it's after hours, right? And they're in the middle of a cardiovascular system. The room was packed, right? I mean, every seat was filled. They're getting incredible leadership training. We have truly a national expert on leadership skills and things like that for physicians. Dr. Minkus, and he and some of the other expert faculty members are leading that. But again, I mean, you can train these skills, right? Some of these skills are trainable, and of course, the physician of the future, they're expecting it. And look at this, right? So every hospital system across the country, if you look at just a few years ago, very few of them actually had physician CEOs. There was a white paper that came out in 2011 that showed that if you're a physician CEO of the hospital, you had better health outcomes of the patients, and you had better financial outcomes, right? Which is interesting, right? But again, you go to quality, you take care of quality, you do a good job in quality, the money just kind of follows, right? I mean, somehow that seems to kind of work out, right? But focusing on patient quality, here we try to focus on medical education quality. I'm not trying to build the cheapest medical school in the world. I'm trying to build the best medical school in the world. And so, things kind of work out. But with the physician leadership, they showed that. And now there was this whole push to have more physician CEOs. Certainly almost every hospital and healthcare system has a chief medical officer. That's a position that wasn't always around, right? I mean, heck, 30, 40 years ago, most hospitals did not have a CMO. Most hospitals now have a chief medical informatics officer that oversees all the medical informatics, all the health records, electronic health records, as well as all the the data analytics and all that stuff for their patient population. Now, like our two biggest hospital systems here in town are Advent Health and Orlando Health. They both have chief AI officers, right? Which is incredible, right? I mean, a few years ago, AI wasn't really the tip of the tongue that much for most people. And now, you can't go in any conversation. Almost every meeting I go into, there's something about AI that we're talking about. How do we leverage it? How do we do it safely? How do we train the physicians of the future on artificial intelligence and stuff like that? But that's, a physician role at all these hospital systems, across the country. But again, physician leadership. So the expectation is that, physicians and they need the leadership skills, and we are leaders. So we are training those folks to do it. So anyway, so great question, Curtis.
Yeah, thank you. And great answer. And in fact, I'd love to talk to, it was Dr. Minkus, the one that's doing the leadership course. I'd love to maybe have him on the show one day to talk some more about that if he'd be interested.
100%. He's awesome. I'll be happy to connect you.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be a great episode, I think. So, on the topic of striving for excellence, I think osteopathic medicine in particular just offers a great framework to approach this lifestyle. I mean, I derive an immense sense of purpose from the idea of, our time on earth is limited. We're not going to live forever. We have, like I said, we have a small time to do what we're called to do on this earth. And I think looking at life through the lens of maximizing your potential, doing the most you can with the time you have in the domains of mind, body, and spirit is just a great way to approach life, because it's sort of like a Jacob's ladder approach. You're always striving towards that next level indefinitely, towards the highest potential good that you can conceptualize yourself achieving. And in that process of maximizing your intellectual potential by spending time reading or engaging in discussions, maximizing your physical potential by exercising and dieting and sleeping, and then maximizing your spiritual potential by meditating or prayer or whatever it may be for the individual. It's a great way I've found to approach day-to-day life, and I think in medicine as well. I've kind of looked at it, right, because at my stage in the process, I've got school and residency to go towards, and I think it just, there's such a great journey to be had from the point I'm at now to the point that I will be, and it's like in most people that divide between where you are and where you want to be can just become the journey of a lifetime. And to tie that back into osteopathic medicine and setting the example of the physician and just constantly striving for excellence by making it a point to not to sell yourself short, to really work towards fulfilling that potential, unleashing what you have within you while you're here, is so critical for the physician leader to embody. Now, tying that back into osteopathic medicine and the holistic approach to care, how do you think the principles of osteopathic medicine positively influence patient care with these things in mind?
Great. Well, great question, Curtis. And, and first of all, I love what you said there that, there's an old thing in biology that, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? And I think that's true in our own individual lives, personally, and, as we navigate the life. And so, of course, I'm a DO, osteopathic physician. Heck, I was a triple science major from University of Miami and, 30 MCAT at the time. I could have, pretty much done anything in healthcare if I wanted to. But, I decided to become an osteopathic physician. It was one of the best decisions I ever made in the world. And I wouldn't do anything other. I've had more opportunities of being a DO than anything else. And of course, the osteopathic philosophy, goes back to, literally when the first osteopathic school was created in 1892 by E.T. Still, our founder. He actually created the medical school to put a more scientific, rational basis on the treatment of medicine. And that was actually in the charter. I paraphrased that slightly, but that was what it said. And, they didn't have the term evidence-based medicine back then, but they did it. And so that was one of the principles. So, of course, back then in the late 1800s, they were giving arsenic and mercury to patients and stuff like that. And so his philosophy was if they can get more of a scientific, rational approach, they'll get better outcomes. He also felt very, very much about a whole patient approach. Like you said, the mind, body, spirit. Taking care of all those aspects, right? The psychosocial aspects. I mean, if you write this patient that can't afford anything, the prescription for a drug that costs $50,000 or whatever. I mean, it's not gonna work, right? So you have to treat the whole patient. And, their whole, psychosocial health things, you got to connect to patients, all these type of things. So, of course, that both of those have turned out to be major leaders. Of course, we have this hands-on approach, not afraid to touch patients and be able to, help diagnose and treat patients, human touch, right? I mean, that's also important for the osteopathic philosophy. And so all these things, I think, form the basis of our profession. And I would say that the osteopathic profession has had profound influences in medicine. And I make the argument that medicine in, the United States would never be like it is now. I mean, people around the world look to the United States in terms of our, innovations and our treatments of medicine. And I think, osteopathic medicine has a huge historical basis for that. But I also think that osteopathic medicine is the future, right? So 1 in 4 medical students in the United States is a DO. It's one of the fastest growing fields in healthcare, in the United States. And, the interest of being a DO is, more now than ever has been before. And people, going back to our mission statement, to train caring and competent osteopathic physicians, right? That caring approach. So patients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I think that's the basis of that. And I think that's helped inform the type of physician that I wanted to be. I think it's really resonating. It's resonating to patients across the United States. It's resonating to future medical students, and of course I'm a little biased, but don't get me wrong. I love all healthcare providers and stuff like that, but I do like the DOs a lot more.
Hey, understandably, as my good buddy Sebastian back in college when we were applying to medical school, as we always used to say, DO all the way. But of course, No hash against the MDs. We're all one team.
Oh, I love MDs, and a lot of our faculty are MDs and stuff. I love MDs. I may be a little biased, but I love MDs. I love everybody.
Right. Let there be no question that there is a mutual respect here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, Dr. Hasty, I think so far we've had a pretty awesome discussion about leadership in medicine, about your journey of expanding medical education, what makes a great physician leader, and what a holistic approach to care looks like. So as we sort of wrap things up here, I wanted to ask you if you had any last pieces of advice that you think would be valuable to share with the audience, perhaps medical students, college students, or residents, or even physicians.
Excellent. Yeah. So just a couple things. Number one, for medical students, and I guess even, for residents out there, and I can, send this for the show notes as far as my advice for medical students developing medical schools. There's this tradition out there for deans of the medical school, and typically the dean of the medical school gives their advice to the entering medical students in there. So I have sort of a top 10 list of my and I spent, and this is over years and years talking to other physicians and experts and things like that. What are the things that medical students should be focused on? But I will give you, my number one in terms of the piece of advice for medical students. And that is to focus exactly what we talked about in that core drive, right? If you can focus on that bigger picture, the why of why you want to be a physician. So, if you're just trying to get the A in the course and stuff like that, I mean, that's not really the motivation, right? That's work, right? If you're focusing on becoming a better physician to improve the lives of others, that's a very noble reason. That's going to give the gas for the motivation. That's going to, change patient care. So if you can get focused on that, that's going to be, one of the best things. Also for current medical students getting into residency, I have an article about, advice on getting into residency. There's a lot of different strategies and things like that getting into residency. And actually I have a video that's on, the OCOM website that, I would certainly encourage folks to do. And, for, the practicing physicians, I think, remember why we went into medicine, but also, again, on that continuous improvement, right? We always got to be achieving more. We should be the models of health. We should be the models of integrity. We should be the models for the physician of the future, and also consider teaching the next generation of physicians, right? I mean, we're not going to be around forever. And by teaching the next generation of physicians, you're really paying it forward, right? People did it for you. Let's do it for the next generation and make a difference in the world. And let's leave this place a better place than we came into it.
Outstanding advice. All right, folks, we've been talking with Dr. Robert Hasty. Thank you so much for your time, sir, and I appreciate all your wisdom.
Great. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you.